then finish it at service. So this way we can cook a risotto in 8 to 10 minutes versus 15 and 20 minutes. If I had it my way, I would do it from start to finish. And there are plenty of Italian restaurants, very traditional ones, that will serve risotto at certain times and just risotto is ready, and they scoop it out to everyone who wants it. And then I think that's the best result. But when you're serving people who want risotto when they want it, then I mean, if done properly, you can get a really nice result. So certainly for entertaining at home, it's a great. It just make me do it, but it's certainly something that you could get people involved in. And anytime you have that opportunity, I think people really enjoy themselves. Maybe at first they're a little hesitant, especially if they're wearing like nice clothes, boots or whatever. But it's cool. And what I like about the menu in general is that everything is sort of tailored towards that, where it sounds nice and obviously it's going to taste great. But in the end, the time is spent, maybe in the preparation, maybe more time shopping, and less time away from your guests. So very quick.
So you probably saw I added a little bit of butter.
Yeah, how much butter was that? Like how you talked in when you were talking, and it's like
it's good for all of you. What we're making today. Obviously, if I were going to give this to a person, I'd put a little bit less than that.
No, you would.
But
don't lie. Don't lie. You would.
But this is going to be about this size, so you're basically going to have a little bit of butter, and we might make this creamy, hence the butter.
Right. But is there really anything wrong with butter, chef?
Not really. It is a fat. It is saturated, but the French. The French eat a lot of butter, and I think if you but keep it in moderation, and it's then how you should. I try not to things that I like, but usually I don't go crazy over it, except for the first time that I eat them. That's to your liking. Usually a risotto, if you put it on the plate, it should pool, but it should be about maybe that high. But it's also a preference. I mean, some people make the risotto so I think it's completely up to you. I would probably leave it like this.
I would as well.
Cheese. Parmesan, but obviously if you like something else, like I said, mozzarella would be great because you can actually feel the large pieces in that.
Are there any other sort of dry cheeses that you could use similar to Parmesan?
Grana Padano is really good, and it's usually a substitute for Parmesan. But if you did want something creamier, you can put it in there. If you like goat cheese, put goat cheese in there.
When I see him do this, I realize why I was working with him the way around.
So you see I'm stirring a lot less, being really gentle with it. Do you like to taste it?
All right. Where'd you put the salt? Steak number. The rice is cooked, but it's got a little bit of bite to it. By the time it cools, you'll have that nice soft texture that you're looking for. Then when you fry it, it's going to be just sort of this crispy fried spread.
So at home, let's say you have a container like this, or maybe a plastic container, a Tupperware. You can do that.
I'm sorry, but it looks like macaroni and cheese I grew up with.
You can cool this down. Again, liking, I would say. We were panko because it's it's really, really dry. It's a good product, and you can also, which are fine. Pancake blender, make it really fine, so it's something that's really crispy, but it doesn't have to look like panko usually does, which is very regular and large.
For those who aren't familiar, Panko, Panko, it's a market available product from Japan, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of comes like these little crispies. And then you can grind it up and it becomes powder, or you can crush it a little bit and you have like multi-textured stuff. It's better than the seasoned bread. I don't know if they sell it in the States or just all.
So we shake it. Put in the flour. Egg white. Flour out, it helps. If your product's a little bit wet, it'll dry it up, and then it allows the egg white to evenly coat it. You go back into the dry area.
So it's like food glue.
Exactly. Regional food glue.
Mm.
So now you have a better risotto.
Cute.
So that's steps. You make a lot of
And with this delicious sauce that you're about to see.
depends on how many you're eating and how you're serving it. Let's say if you're serving this as something that's passed in the party, you think this makes around 24 little balls. If you want to make it an appetizer and maybe make it part of a salad, which is something that we're doing here right now, you can use 3 or 4 per person. So then that would be just for 6 people. So this is a mayonnaise. Mayonnaise usually do in a bowl the whisk initial way, and sometimes you can use egg, but it makes it richer if you just use which is separated into. That's 3 yolks. Yeah. There's about a tablespoon and a half lime pickle.
Yeah, I think this is really valuable because so often, we just buy the jars of mayonnaise, and they don't really have a lot of love in them. They don't have a lot of flavor. And mayonnaise is you're gonna see it's pretty simple. By making your own, you can really spruce it up with cool flavors. Certainly, if you didn't want to make your own mayonnaise, then store-bought mayonnaise is perfectly fine. You don't have to build that.
So again, if making it easier, if you don't like chopping garlic, a microplane or a grater works great.
I think sometimes it gives a better result.
Well, the finer you chop garlic, the more you'll taste it. Sometimes, most of the time. But when you're using like something like this, you really want that garlic flavor. All right. Fine. Okay.
You want to leave over it?
If you did not have the immersion blender, then you would have to chop the lime pickle by hand or whatever you're putting in there.
What about a blender?
You can use a blender. I find this really easy to clean and really easy to use. A blender is a little bit harder to get out of, but if you don't have this, there's a lot of substitutions. So now you're slowly going to add the oil. In this case, a neutral oil.
Okay. We gotta have some fun, right? Can you guys see what's going on there? So it's starting to thicken, right? Can I just dump the rest of the oil in, or is that going to be a problem?
Now, usually with this is an emulsion. Emulsion, you're pretty much you're having oil. Emulsion, you're adding two liquids or substances that don't really mix. So we're here, you're suspending oil in the liquid pretty much. And you want to flow. If it were to add everything at once, it would break it. The oil would not be absorbed enough, fast enough by the liquid. And the yolks have a natural leptin, which is an emulsifier, and that obviously helps. If you were to make maybe a roasted garlic mayonnaise, and you don't like eggs, if you have enough of a puree and a little bit of liquid, you can add enough oil to it to somewhat resemble a mayonnaise or an aioli. You know, like aioli is usually just garlic with olive oil.
That's pretty cool.
You know?
That lime pickle smells really good.
Another one. There you go.
So once you get it to like a certain stage, and you can pretty much start adding a little bit more. It's usually me just rush things a little bit, which is what I used to get yelled at a bit. Good.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's our little rice fritter. Get a little close up of that. It's beautiful. And I can feel that it's got a very thin layer of the coating on it. If I just a little bit too much, it'll make a little dimple in it, which is just perfect. So then I'll let you do the honors here. You can open it up and show them how delicious it looks on the inside.
You get to try it. Oil will dictate how thick or thin the mayo is. So again, preference. If you want something thicker, if you want something using more of a sauce, you know, the aioli, and less oil. If you want it thicker, less use more oil. It's that creamy risotto. It's really crispy on the outside and really soft on the inside.
The lime pickle, because it works. I mean, it completely works. It's got a little spice. It has that acidity that you need to cut through the richness of the creamy risotto, but it's not contrived. I think it's beautiful. So let's give a little round of
One little ball.
No, you're good. 40.
I think these are basic recipes that you can tailor to whatever you like. As we found out, there's many kind of risottos that you can make. Whatever you want. You know, risotto is like the backbone, but the flavoring is what you make it. Same thing with the mayonnaise.
Hot oil, not good. But yeah, when you're doing deep frying at home, just be careful. Use a big pot, and it's always good to have a thermometer. So we include the temperature, I believe, in this recipe. The thermometer just helps you, keep sort of that accurate gauge on how hot the oil is. Have a temperature on that recipe?
180.
I'll take that for you, chef.
Maybe we'll just put this later.
Okay, all right.
All right. So next recipe is the red snapper, which was steamed with the asparagus and the brown butter sabayon. So this is a really nice red snapper.
Wow.
And again, depending on how many people you're feeding or how you're serving it, then it depends how big your fish should be.
Chef, it's really nice. How do we know that it's really nice, that you're not lying to us?
Usually the fish will tell you. I don't have to tell you anything.
Okay.
But you can check the eyes. You want it to be really clear and wet. If you see dry eyes, like your own eyes, you don't want dry eyes, right? And then you can check the gills. It's nice and bright. if you see something really dark, you know that blood oxidizes, it gets brown the longer it sits. So the darker it is, pretty much the older it is. Right. And we touch the fish, it comes back, it's glistening. That's a good sign always.
So if it's slimy, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It depends on the fish. There's, at least there we have trout, which you really want something slimy. Turbo, flatfish, you want it to be slimy. But something like this, usually fish with big scales are not slimy. Also, if the scales, this has been scaled already, but if the scales were to fall off really easily when you touch it, that means it's old also.
You can also use your nose, right, if it stinks.
Yeah.
Fish stinks. You know,
I mean,
you don't need
everyone
fish.
jokes that fish is fishy, but if it's fishy, it's not good. Any questions at this point? No?
Well, so there's the Gateway of India, and then so we get it through our local fish purveyor. He's a guy that I've had a relationship with for the last year and a half. I think that whether it's a store or wherever you're getting your fish, trust that person, because maybe you don't know how to test quality, and you need to be able to trust someone and rely on them. So you don't always know that the fish has been kept on ice or that it's been in a refrigerated vehicle or whatever. So it's just important to have these kind of relationships. Same when you're buying meat, vegetables, it's all the same. I mean, you're going to put it in your body, so you want to know where it's been.
Okay. This fish, again, preference. If you like shrimp, you can use shrimp. If you like just a wider, thick fish, like cod, you can use cod. So pretty much what you like. Something stronger, let's say tuna or mackerel, might be too strong for this preparation. But again, then you can tailor the same preparation for yourself. Like let's say the sabayon, you can add more chili to it and use a stronger tasting vegetable than the white asparagus. Yeah.
Pomfret, which is locally available, could be used and would probably be steamed really nicely. Yeah.
This is it's a white fish, so somewhat neutral in flavor, and it's lean, so anything comparable. All right, so like I mentioned, the scales have been removed, just because if I had the scales here, it would not be very nice. But we use a scaler, but if you were at home, you can use a spatula and just run it against the scales like this until all the scales come out. And also it's been gutted, as you can see here. If I were to show you how to gut it, you always cut away from you like this. You would find all the organs in here. Take them out, maybe cut them with a scissor, discard them, and then just slightly wash the blood or wherever organ might have opened up inside. So next step,
delicious.
You want to take out the fins. This is not necessary, but if you're doing it for the first time, it's a lot safer.
Yeah, some of these fins can poke you, and then they make your fingers swell up, and you look like E.T. You know, a little ball on your fingers. Is it really worth all the fuss doing, breaking the fish down yourself? Like, do you have to buy a whole fish? Can I just buy a fillet?
You can, but again, you're saving money. I think usually when you buy a whole, it's cheaper, and you also know how old the fish is. Usually when you take everything off and you just have the fillet, it's a lot easier, definitely first a lot easier to keep, and it's somewhat a lot easier to fool the customers. You can't see the bloodline, you can't see the eyes, so it's just white flesh that doesn't really have an indication other than the smell of how fresh it is. Okay.
Does it hurt the fish when you take its fins off?
If it were flopping, it might hurt a little bit, but now we're good. Okay, so away from you again, I'll make a small slit right behind the gills. See that? And you also want to be safe when you're using a knife. In this case, I'm also wearing gloves. And if you were to go at a party later, you don't want to smell like fish. And it's safer. So holding the fish with one hand.
JB, can you angle it just a little bit so they can see?
It's good.
This is the best part, really.
So sharp knife always. Push it down, and there's a back one that's just running around here. So we want to run the knife against that. See?
He's really talented. Uh-oh. Take a brief intermission. So who here would actually break down a fish at home? Who's going to go home and try this? Come on. Give me 3 hands. Who's going to do it? Promise me you'll do it. It really, it does make a difference. He's right. I mean, you have no idea where this fillet has been. I know a lot of us are guilty of buying frozen pasta fillets. They're available, taste good, but the quality that you experience when you do this yourself, when you get a perfectly fresh fish, is just unmatched.
All right. So pretty much open both sides. Now a lot of people will tell you that you should just go ahead and take it off and then flip it over and just do the other side. But I find, especially when you have the head on and the backbone, if you have just the backbone against it, it kind of bends the fish. And it's a lot harder to get in the bottom because it's a lot lower. So your knife will be just against the board. So I like to do that and leave it on.
Got to adjust this spine.
Okay. I'm going to do the exact same on the other side.
So you're not going to get too and take the fillet off and be all proud of yourself.
I mean, you could, but then it's harder to do the other side.
Okay.
So yeah, excuse me.
So he's risking his life right now. Typically, you would not be cutting towards yourself, but he's doing it for you fine folks at home. What kind of knife is that?
It is a Japanese called it's a petty knife.
Okay.
Petty knife is smaller than this. Is so it gets a little sharper, which is great for fish.
Now, I can't get a Japanese knife, and I don't have a knife myself. What are the options?
You can get a traditional, well, somewhat traditional Western knife. Like a Henkel or a Niptic or